east side. Meanwhile, across much of England and Wales, just a few spots of rain here and there across western areas, but across more central and eastern parts, it looks like it's going to stay dry as we go through this evening and the start of the night. Then overnight, some of the clouds going to break up. We will see some clear skies developing, and similar to some recent nights where we get those clear skies, it could turn a little fresh, a little chilly for some, but if you're under that cloud, then it's going to be another relatively mild night with temperatures for most towns and cities holding up in double figures. Sunday looks like a slightly brighter, sunnier day than today. From the get-go, there will be a bit more sunshine on offer, and yes, there will still be some outbreaks of rain, perhaps one or two for parts of East Anglia and a bit more across parts of Scotland, particularly down the western side and also around the borders area, but most places having a mostly dry and slightly sunnier day, greater chance of seeing some sunshine, and with that, temperatures rising a couple of degrees higher than today. Whatever you're up to, have a great weekend.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Igniting that debate over controversial monuments in our public spaces.
Well, joining us now is historian and broadcaster Rafe Heidelman. Rafe, what do you make of this?
Well, the woke Taliban are back again. I thought we had seen the last of them after their insane conduct, after the Black Lives Matter madness. But I'm afraid this is par for the course. You know, Baroness Debonair is a poster child for this nihilistic, this destructive self-loathing that's sweeping the nation right now. And of course, she's symbolic too of the left's long march through the institutions. Here we have again a failed politician and woke ideologue who's now untouchable in the House of Lords and can preach this sort of anti-British ideology free from any consequences. Clive of India has been unfairly attacked and maligned in the past for a very long time. That doesn't mean he was perfect, and I'm not here to defend the excesses of the East India Company. Far from that. But we as a society, why is it that we as a society are no longer mature enough to understand that no person, no hero of ours is as pure as the driven snow? And if we erase people from the past, we are also erasing huge sections of our past too. This is a war on our history. When we walk through the streets, when we walk through the public square, we see monuments to the people who made Britain what it is today. Most of that will be good, some of that will be bad, but most of it will be good and sometimes also controversial at the same time. And it's just, this PC desire to delete our past, it's immature, it's undemocratic, and it's Philistine. And why stop at Clive's statue? Where did it end?
Why stop at that statue?
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 23rd of August, live across the United Kingdom. This is Saturday Morning Live.
Well, a fresh wave of protest is expected this weekend across the country outside hotels used as temporary accommodation for asylum seekers. That's as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of an asylum hotel in Epping.
You've been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people. Like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me.
Well, Lucy Connelly has hit out at the Prime Minister in her first interview following her release from prison.
And a charity based in Newcastle has launched legal action to stop civil servants representing their workplace at Pride events and from wearing rainbow lanyards. Should there be a ban in place? We'll be debating that.
And Ghislaine Maxwell has denied ever witnessing any inappropriate behaviour by Donald Trump in newly released transcripts from the US Justice Department. We'll get the latest on that.
And some extraordinary scenes from Hawaii, where the Kilo volcano is currently erupting. We'll keep an eye on those incredible pictures. The biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters. Your weekend starts here.
Well, Charlie, we've been doing Saturday Morning Live for about 5 months now. Our last one, very sad.
It is, but we've had a great time and we've very much enjoyed all of your interactions at home. Brilliant audience as ever. Saturday Morning Live, it's a great slot just after breakfast.
Absolutely.
The news machine whirs into action as people get out and about, and we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be right across the country. Doogie Beatty in Liverpool, of course, other asylum protests around the country. A lot of focus also, Miriam, on that Lucy Connelly interview. That's going to be a bit of a headache for Sir Keir Starmer because Number 10 hasn't reacted to it yet. But at some point they will have to.
And she's revealed a lot more details about what happened when she was arrested, the interview with the police, particularly quite a lot of bias against her views. She was seen as racist when she says she was just expressing concerns about immigration. So do get in touch about that. All the other things we're discussing today, gbnews.com/yoursay.
But before we do anything else, Bethany Elsey, she's got all the latest news headlines.
Thank you both. Good morning. Here's your top stories from the GB newsroom at 2 minutes past 10. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every day under plans to tackle illegal immigration. In an interview with The Times, the Reform UK leader says Britain is facing what he calls a massive crisis, and the only way forward is to detain and deport all migrants who arrive illegally. His plans would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture, as well as other international agreements. The emergency legislation would ban those who come to the UK on small boats from claiming asylum, and whilst they await deportation, would be held in detention centres on surplus RAF bases. Nationwide protests and counter-protests are expected to be held outside hotels housing asylum seekers today. Demonstrations under the Abolish Asylum System slogan will be held in major towns and cities across England, including Bristol, Liverpool, Newcastle and central London. Rallies will also be held across Scotland and Wales. Protesters with the group Stand Up to Racism will also be out in force. Lucy Connelly has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. The 42-year-old was jailed for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers online after the Southport murders last year. The former childminder and wife of a Conservative councillor was released from HMP Peterborough on Thursday. Ms Connelly will meet officials from Donald Trump's administration later today to discuss her concerns around freedom of speech in Britain. Ghislaine Maxwell has told US officials that she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. In an interview with the US Justice Department in July, the convicted sex trafficker said President Trump was, quote, always very cordial and very kind. Ms Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls, also denied any knowledge of a client list. She added that she does not believe Epstein died by suicide. The interview transcript was released as pressure is mounting on the Justice Department to disclose more information about its Epstein probe. At least 5 people have been killed and many others injured after a tour bus crashed and rolled over on a major road in upstate New York. The bus was returning to New York City from Niagara Falls with 54 passengers on board when the driver lost control. Several people were thrown from the bus as the windows shattered, while some became trapped in the wreckage. Lyle Menendez, the older brother of the notorious brothers who were jailed for murdering their parents in Los Angeles in 1989, has been denied parole. It comes a day after his brother Eric Menendez received the same ruling. The pair, now aged 57 and 54, were given life sentences without the chance of parole 30 years ago after killing their parents with a shotgun at their Beverly Hills home. But both appealed for release after a judge reduced their sentences earlier this year. They claim they acted in self-defence. And if you're headed on holiday this bank holiday weekend, be warned, there'll be long delays on the roads and disruption to train services. The RAC is urging drivers to set off as early as possible or be prepared to stay longer in traffic. Members of the RMT union who work at the train operator Cross Country are walking out today and Monday, affecting services throughout the long weekend. And Network Rail are warning that some major routes will be closed for engineering works. If you are going away, I hope you have a very nice weekend. You're up to date for now. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, protests outside hotels housing migrants are set to take place across the country this weekend. It's another weekend of protest. And counter-protesters will also gather outside hotels, including demonstrations from the group Stand Up to Racism.
Well, the latest round of protests come as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of an asylum hotel in Epping. Well, joining us now in the studio is former Police and Crime Commissioner Festus Akimbosoye. Thank you so much for coming in, Festus. Now, we'll get to the hotel protests in a minute, but I just want to get your view on Lucy Connelly's release. Of course, she was released from prison yesterday, served over a year in jail following that tweet at the time of the Southport murders. She's revealed some very interesting information about how she basically tried to explain herself to the police when she was arrested, and yet that came back to harm her in the court. Do you think she got the right legal advice at the beginning of this process?
I think her legal team probably need to have a conversation with someone about how they go about doing their job. What I find quite interesting about her case, though, if I'm quite frank, is that, of course, nobody will tolerate the kind of language that was used and the fact that we did see hostels being set on fire. However, the kind of sentence that she received was something that I found quite extraordinary, given what other people like Ricky Jones got away with, the Labour councillor who did the throat-slitting action. He got away with that.
Well, he got away with it because he was cleared by a jury of his peers. And what's interesting, actually, in the interview that Lucy Connelly gave yesterday to The Telegraph, Lucy Connelly said that Ricky Jones should not have gone to jail. She also thinks that the right thing happened there. She's glad that Ricky Jones wasn't successfully prosecuted. She just thinks that she should have had the same treatment.
Correct. So it's not a case of whether I thought they were charged or anything like that. It's the fact that there seems to be a disparity in their outcomes for doing something probably about the same. So now, look, nobody wants to have any incitement to violence and things like that in our streets. You know, the police have, everyone knows, a lot to deal with, including this weekend with Notting Hill Carnival coming up. But people do want to see a kind of parity in the way the law is meted out. But look, we need to have a greater respect for free speech in Britain. Sometimes it is not very tasteful, and it can be quite ugly. But I really do want to see a situation whereby even if we don't like what people are saying, we still respect the freedom to express your views and even to congregate, to protest if you must.
Sure. Do you think there's a problem with the law here, though? Because she wasn't actually charged with incitement to violence, which could potentially be easy to prove whether or not her words did actually cause violence. She was charged with incitement to racial hatred. And in some ways, that's quite a subjective thing. That lots of the legal team seem to think that this could be racism, but she didn't actually mention race. She was talking about illegal immigration. That's independent of race.
Which people are entitled to express a view on. You know, you don't have to like people who wear tweed jackets, for example. that is not... thank you very much. I just don't see why we are pushing the boundaries so much, because eventually you push it further and further and further and you can't really say anything. Look, like I said, I do not condone any kind of language that could stir up hatred in our communities. But, in the grand scheme of things, people are allowed to express their views, even if it means they dislike me. That should not be a reason why they end up in jail.
Well, Lucy Connelly has said that she was a political prisoner.
Yes,
Number
I've heard
10
that,
on the
yes.
other side, Number 10 has said that they've not commented on that charge specifically yet. They've declined to comment, but previously, Sir Keir Starmer, his spokesperson, they've always said that they supported sort of the charges against the people from last year, and they were against incitement to violence, which, of course, as Miriam's just said, wasn't what she was charged
Yes, correct.
with. Do you think she's perhaps gone too far with that political prisoner line? Because there'll be lots of political prisoners around the world in jails in North Africa or the Middle East thinking, well, hang on, am I the same as Lucy Connelly?
Look, I'm sure she's got some very clever people advising her and how to kind of make her case more to last longer in the press. I get that. But look, this was an open goal that was made available to her, and she's shooting into it. Was she a political prisoner? That's her views. In light of what you just mentioned, there are some people who are real political prisoners around the world, some of whom are British citizens who are being arrested in China at the moment. I'm just not sure if that is a right comparison to make.
Shall we move on to the hotel protest? Because
yes.
there's more planned this weekend against hotels that are housing asylum seekers. We've seen this interesting situation where the Epping Council successfully have got this injunction for the Bell Hotel to be closed, but the Home Secretary wants to appeal against it. Can you see her point of view, though? As unpopular as these hotels are, she has a duty to house these people, which is going to be very difficult for her if all the hotels...
She is going to have an awful lot of appeals to be making, because given the fact that more and more councils are now saying they're going to be looking very closely at the grounds on which the Epping Council's case was allowed by the court, they too will be following suit. Now, the Home Secretary will be making a lot of appeals. Look, what the government needs to do is to just pay attention to the people and genuinely listen to the concerns of residents right across Britain, not just in the Red Wall area or in the coastal towns, but right across Britain where many of these asylum seekers are being housed. They need to actually spend more time listening to them rather than fighting against what people are saying. Otherwise, she's going to have a lot of appealing to do.
Festus, the government, they say that they are going to continue their strategy of quote-unquote smashing the gangs. They've got this plan to improve deportations. They also want to reduce the use of hotels. That's what they're saying they're putting out and achieving. But I think it's quite clear across the country that a lot of people don't feel as though that strategy is working. The numbers don't...
It doesn't add up.
But we're hearing today this deportation plan coming out from the Reform camp. Do you think the Labour government will be forced into perhaps an even more radical solution than they opposed under the Rwanda scheme? Could they put forward, say, camps to process people in Britain?
Isn't it ironic how political parties in opposition oppose everything, and then when they're in government, they now try to do the thing that they were opposing for all these years? They do not have a cat in hell's chance right now of smashing the gangs unless they look something very closely at something that close as the Rwanda arrangement. It could be with a different country, whatever it is. There is no way they're going to do this. So they might be saying that they're reducing the amount of those who are being housed in asylum hotels, but where are they going? Because the numbers aren't going down in terms of the crossings. They're at record highs. Where are they going? So just because you're not putting them in asylum hotels, that means they're going in HMOs, in homes that other people could be actually renting. I think there's an appeal that's gone out recently to private landlords to take on more and more asylum seekers. So no matter how they try to reshuffle the decks, the fact is the numbers are not going down. These people are being housed somewhere, and you're going to keep seeing more and more of these protests right across Britain because people are very concerned. And like I said, what the government should be doing is listening more to local people and local councils rather than appealing against them in the courts.
Well, Festus Akimbosoye, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, we do need to read out a statement from Northamptonshire Police. A spokesperson said, "We are aware of comments made by Lucy Connelly in an interview following her release from prison."
Now, we hope to contact Mrs Connelly in the coming days to understand the issues she has raised around Northamptonshire Police, and that'll be referring to comments she made in that interview where she said that the police put out information saying that she was anti immigrant. So that'll be an interesting discussion to see how that rolls on. Lucy Connelly, Miriam, saying that she could sue the police.
What I found fascinating about the interview was she was saying when she first encountered the duty solicitor to support her when she was arrested, the solicitor was convinced that she was going to get off once she'd explained herself, the fact that she deleted it within 3 hours of her own volition. And the solicitors were absolutely aghast at what was happening and never seen anything like it before, the kind of prosecutions that were being made. So I think there's a lot more to come out on this.
A lot more to come out, for sure. Well, moving on, we mentioned it briefly with Festus, but Nigel Farage has unveiled his blueprint for the mass deportation of hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers who come to Britain on small boats.
Well, he's pledged 5 deportation flights a day, and his plan would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture and other international agreements.
Now, Reform's proposed emergency legislation, known as the Illegal Migration Mass Deportation Bill, would bar those who come to Britain on small boats from claiming asylum.
Well, joining us now is the former Labour Party chair, Baroness Hayter. Good morning, Baroness Hayter. Good to see you. What do you make of these plans from Nigel Farage? He's really responding to public opinion, isn't he?
Well, I have 2 big concerns about it. One is that even if he was to become Prime Minister, it's 4 years off. And also, for reasons I'll say in a moment, this isn't workable. So therefore, I'm really worried that what he's doing is making yet another of those promises that will never come to pass. And I think we've had enough of those. We had enough of them with the last government, who kept giving numbers in promises. To some extent, we've had it with the present government when we thought we would, stop the boats quicker than we've been able to do. And I think the last thing the country wants at the moment are promises that can never come to pass. So I really worry about that.
Baroness Hayter, how is it unworkable?
Just describe. Okay, I was going to say that the reason why I think it's unworkable, apart from being 4 years off, which was the absolute fastest he could become Prime Minister, is the assumption that other countries will take these 5 flights a day. Other countries also have rules about their borders and who they will take in, and they will possibly not even allow, even if we could put these flights, some of these areas, of course, are war zones. Even if we could fly our planes in there, they probably wouldn't let them land. They wouldn't take anyone that wasn't their own nationals anyway. So the idea that we could just put people on planes and assume that other countries will allow them to land in their airspace and take them off planes is for the fairies. So, my worry is this is a promise that even if it was correct, and we could come on to whether this is the right way of doing it, it's not workable, because it assumes every other country would simply take 5 aircraft a day full of...
Baroness Hayter, since the Trump administration came into power earlier this year, they have successfully deported thousands of people to countries that you might say they would never have accepted those flights, but with a bit of diplomacy and a few threats saying if you don't accept them, you won't get any visas, if you don't accept them, you won't get any trade. They've caved in. Britain could surely do the same. And as we do know, the United States is even using our facilities in Rwanda to process deportations. The options are there. We just have to have the belief to do it.
Well, you're muddling 2 things there. One is process and one is returns. If you look at the returns issue, many of them are being returned actually across a land border. We don't have land borders, which is why it is much more difficult for us. People arriving because we have sea borders, and therefore they'd have to be flown. And although the Trump administration has done a couple of flights, it is basically taking Mexicans back to Mexico. It's taking people to their own countries where they have citizenship. That is wholly different from what we're talking about, sending people possibly to countries they don't come from, or countries that won't take them. And also, we're not giving visas to Afghanistan. So, we're talking about wholly different countries, mostly that we don't trade with, and it's like paying them or persuading them or bribing them to take people. This isn't, this isn't serious international diplomacy.
I just want to come back to what you said earlier about the public is fed up of politicians making promises that they don't keep. What do you think of Sir Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs?
Well, that was what I was referring to. I think making promises as if they could take place quickly is not fair to the electorate. It's not correct that we can do these things that fast. He has done a lot about that. We have managed...
Well, he may have done things, but the results are not there on paper. The numbers are going up. The number of asylum seekers was at record levels ending June this year. And despite all the government's efforts, it's becoming increasingly clear that it is international legislation that is preventing us from securing our borders. And I think that is now a common view across a lot of people. It might be difficult, what Farage is suggesting, but really, what other alternatives are there now?
Well, there's no point him suggesting something that can't happen. That's my major point about what he's saying at the moment. There are other things which, you know, I've had a discussion with him. I can't understand why he won't allow us to introduce identity cards for everyone. One of the great pull factors, the reason these people, and you can see them on your screens now, I think, want to come here, is we don't have identity cards. So it's very easy for them to sort of disappear in our economy, to get jobs, to rent places, and all of that. Whereas in other countries where you have to have identity cards, it's a real problem to be an illegal migrant. There are things we could do that would make a real difference. It would be much easier for us to pick up people who shouldn't be here and then to deport them. But now, why doesn't he go for things that we could introduce now? I've got to persuade my own government of this, by the way, just in case you think there are easy answers. Because we need to do things now and not be waiting 4 years. Today is the problem. As you know, as you're saying, people are arriving here now. This is the time to take action, not to make promises years off, which are probably unenforceable because it would depend on other countries taking flights from us. My issue is they will say no.
OK, Baroness Hayter, thank you very much for that. I should say, the Baroness has said that it's much harder to do flights than the US has a land agreement. They have organised 1,000 deportation flights out of the United States since Trump started his second administration. Obviously, you can't just unilaterally send them, Miriam, you have to have an agreement. But he's shown, I think, his government has shown that if you apply that pressure, it can be facilitated. I think Britain doesn't have the same heft as Washington, but it could do the same. Yeah,
I think it's all about political will. And as for ID cards, if you work in the black economy, you don't need an ID card. This is half the problem. Anyway, still to come. Should civil servants be banned from attending Pride as staff members? And should they be banned from wearing rainbow lanyards? That's what one charity thinks. We'll be debating that.
But next, what are some of your motorway pet peeves? Get in touch on your say, because we'll be discussing that and all of the top stories of the day next with our wonderful paper review panel. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News. See you in a moment.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And that is the sort of rumblings over who on earth is going to be chosen to be godfather to the Duke of Westminster's new child, Cosima. Now, Hugh Grosvenor, of course, friends with both Prince William and Prince Harry for the longest time. He is godfather to one of each of their children. He's now got a sort of a difficult choice to make.
Yes, he has. I mean, he is godfather to Prince George, and we believe he's godfather to Prince Archie, although the Sussexes have never declared who the godparents are. In that situation, you got William was at the wedding. He was an usher at the wedding, so he had a job to do. Harry declined to turn up and had told Hugh Grosvenor that he wasn't coming, because of the friction it could have caused with him and his brother. That friction would still be there if he invited both of them to be godparents. It's going to be interesting to see how we get this one sorted. You would expect William will be definitely a godfather. I think Hugh would like to have Harry as a godfather because, that's what you do. If you have a godfather from someone, then you will reciprocate.
Do we know when the last time Prince Harry and Prince William actually met was? I mean, this feud runs deep.
They certainly met at the unveiling of the Diana Diana Memorial in the garden, and they were there. But then there was an attempt. I think it was, I can't remember, sometime after, it was either the Queen's funeral or someone else, maybe Prince Philip's funeral, where there was attempts to try to get them to talk together.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, joining us to look through the top stories of today, we've got in our studio political commentator Judita De Silva and the deputy political editor of The Spectator, James Hill. Good morning to you both. Shall we start with this story about Lucy Connelly, who was released from prison yesterday? She was given 31 months. She served over a year. She's given quite a candid interview to Alison Pearson at The Telegraph. James, what really struck you most about that interview?
I think a couple of things struck me, one of which was her apparent willingness, I think, to kind of go on, talk about this, potentially flirting with the idea of becoming a reform figure, talking about being a personality. So I think that's going to be interesting. Like, she's not going to go away. She's going to be out there making this case. She splashes several national newspapers today. So I think we're going to hear much more of this. I think also her points about what the solicitor said when she was saying that you were having that conversation with Festus just now, that's going to really be interesting. And I think this is going to be one of those political stories that just runs and runs, because clearly people are very exercised about it.
Judita, the law is the law, that if you incite racial hatred, according to the Crown Prosecution Service, then you will almost certainly be sent to jail, the maximum sentence, which is, I think, 7 years behind bars. Is this a sign that British law needs to change, or do you think that the right thing happened?
No, I think that it's not a sign that the law should change. The law is there essentially as a deterrent towards bad behaviour. And while I do...
It's not behaviour, it's thinking. It was speech, not behaviour.
The actual issue at hand, I find, is, one, she's capitalising on a shift in the social environment which has happened since she was locked up. And that is, it has swayed towards her favour, because there is a general frustration, a justified frustration, towards what is going on in the country around immigration and asylum seekers. But also the very fact that she pled guilty because knowing the articulation of that tweet was abhorrent. No one is saying you shouldn't have a negative feeling about the situation. Articulate yourself better, articulate yourself responsibly. And with someone with her elevated position, she should know that is her responsibility to do so. So playing...
What elevated position? Just a mum from Northampton?
She has, against Joe Public, because you're associated to a Tory councillor, it's like
tens of thousands.
She's in a very different political position to Joe Public.
But nobody would have known that at the time that she tweeted. I mean, she had hardly any followers on Twitter.
OK, let's go by very basics, a sense of common sense. If I'm frustrated about something, I do not need to express my frustration by saying, go kill someone. You do not need to do that.
She wasn't charged with inciting violence, of course, which is what you're...
Everything about that tweet was wrong. But what... The sentiments that drove that tweet, I'm not debating. You can feel how you feel, but be responsible and be respectful about how you express frustration. There is a myriad of ways to express frustration without talking violently.
But what really strikes me, James, is as distasteful as what she wrote was, you could probably find something worse within 30 seconds of going on X, and the police are nowhere near those tweets. It did seem something remarkably political about the way that they chose to prosecute Lucy Connelly and some others who have not received the same attention as she has.
I think, if you step back a sec, the broader theme and the criticism of policing in the last 5-6 years or so has been with COVID, with some of the things such as the enforcement of the existing law. They do often tend to go after people who are considered, they know where they live, maybe middle class, people who are traditionally law-abiding. And that is, I think, a potentially politically powerful theme. I think that this taps into something, this Lucy Connelly case here. And I do think, I mean, obviously there was a clear sense of the government need to react to what they considered to be a threat to the state of the nation, the authority. I think we saw some echoes with the 2011 riots as well. So I think that there was going to clearly be a clampdown. But the question is, of course, was it disproportionate? And I do think the discussion you had just now, talking about juries, is really interesting in all this. So the Free Speech Union has been supporting Lucy Connelly. They put out a statement last week when the Ricky Jones thing happened about the Labour councillor who was on trial after doing a slit-throat reaction. And they said that that result was fine because the jury had cleared them. And I think if there had been a jury in this case, case, I very much think we might well have had Lucy Connelly cleared.
And Lucy Connelly also said in her interview that she did not think that Ricky Jones should have gone to jail.
Precisely, yeah.
Juditha, do you think that Ricky Jones should have gone to jail because he, in your terms, he did not act responsibly amid the mood of anger and violence? You must surely think he should have gone to prison as well, then?
No, I don't, because
there's no consistency.
There is consistency, because when you look at the adjudication of the actual act that was taking place, there's a clear disparity between what she wrote and what he did. And the fact that, like, I do agree, due process was followed and the decision is the decision, I respect it. There should have been due process with her, I respect that. But we cannot sit down and kind of throw out the window that she didn't do something wrrong. She did.
But you don't think that Ricky Jones did something wrong, then?
No, I think what he did was wrong, but I respect due process. If they have come to that decision, I just have to swallow it and accept it.
For what it's worth, I think the law should change massively here. We've got to get rid of this reliance on Article 10 in the ECHR for free speech.
And also, so many of our laws were written before social media, and they really need updating, because they're trying to prosecute something like hatred, which is very objective.
Once the state can prosecute your thoughts and feelings, it gets into quite murky
comments in the interview as well, when she was basically saying, I don't stand by that, I actually mean that. It was more sort of sense of frustration from doing childcare.
Well, speaking of frustration, this country is struggling very much with the small boats crisis, Juditha, and Nigel Farage has come out today, front page of the Times, talking about his new mass deportation plan. What do you make of his proposals?
I like it in a very twisted way, because Nigel Farage is basically going to expose himself, because he's now getting to a point where reform is becoming a very viable contender. So people are now going to start testing you as a leader and how viable you are as a leader. Your proposed, first there was the whole thing about police reform, £17 billion. Now there's this £10 billion. Where is the money going to come from? How are you going to spend it? Where are you going to get it from? Give us that answer. Second of all, these are things that I agree when they say that you're recycling Tory initiatives. First you said mass deportations were impossible. Now you're going to do them. When you put people on these planes, where are they going to land? You cannot enter international airspace without countries you do not have established repatriation agreements with. You're not exactly a seasoned diplomat. How are you going to negotiate those agreements? How much are they going to cost? Because a country is not going to take on a problem another country has unless they make you pay.
James, what do you think of it?
Well, I think at a sort of high level in terms of the legal framework, that's exactly where a lot of people who are sympathetic to reform are in that kind of mind space. It comes, of course, at the time when the Tories are expected to come out for leaving the ECHR. Farage has sort of one-upped that, talking about pulling out the Human Rights Act. The question, of course, then comes what replaces it. And now I'm interested in the fact there's a couple of points, one of which is that he would have a British Bill of Rights. There are some people on the right who are saying you don't actually need a British Bill of Rights, and it was a kind of Cameron-era fudge, and you can merely go back to the pre-98 system in this country. The second thing, of course, is, and Charlie said in the earlier segment about Trump and the southern border, well, ISIS had a huge amount of resources pumped into it. You'd need to have similar resources if you want to get, I believe the sort of figure is about, if you want to take and deport someone on an airplane, it's about 6 men to restrain them. That's the kind of figure. So our number of border force officials would need to go up hugely. Now, all of this, you can come back and say, look, we've got 4 years to go. We're not putting out a budget now. It's the kind of sort of a signpost rather than the kind of end point. But I will be really interested to see that press conference on Tuesday. And I make the point that the Times have done a pretty, I think, even-handed write-up, and they've got a leader actually saying that he's got lots of good ideas. So I think that that is a really interesting kind of bellwether about where kind of mainstream political opinion is going. OK,
Juditha, James, we'll see you both in the next hour. And still to come here on Saturday Morning Live, should civil servants be banned from taking part in Pride events, as staff members will be debating that?
Well, first of all, here are your latest news headlines with Bethany Else.
Good morning. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every day under plans to tackle illegal immigration. In an interview with The Times, the Reform UK leader says Britain is facing what he calls a massive crisis. Nationwide protests and counter-protests are expected to be held outside hotels housing asylum seekers today. Demonstrations under the Abolish Asylum System slogan and Stand Up to Racism will be held in major towns and cities. Lucy Connelly has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. The 42-year-old was jailed for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers online. Ghislaine Maxwell has told US officials that she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. In an interview with the US Justice Department in July, the convicted sex trafficker said President Donald Trump was always, quote, very kind and cordial. Those are the headlines. More at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thanks, Bethany. And still to come on Saturday Morning Live, Ghislaine Maxwell has defended Donald Trump and made some interesting references to intelligence agencies.
And also, should civil servants be allowed to wear Pride lanyards or indeed attend Pride events in work time? We'll be debating that.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Now, high pressure is going to be the dominating story as we go through this bank holiday weekend, and with that, things are going to be largely dry, but not totally dry. There is some showery bursts of rain around, some across parts of northern England, pushing into parts of the Midlands. And through today, there will be some more showery rain coming in from the west, especially across parts of Northern Ireland. But most places will stay dry, albeit quite cloudy in a few spots. A bit of brightness breaking through here and there, but on the whole, a relatively cloudy story. With that then, if you get the sunshine breaking through, temperatures rising into the low, possibly mid-20s, but under that cloud, it's always going to feel that little bit cooler. Now, staying largely dry as we go through the end of the day, but a few more showery bursts pushing their way in from the west as we go through this evening. So western parts of Scotland could see a couple of spots of rain, but staying dry towards the east. Like I said, across Northern Ireland, there will be some fairly frequent outbreaks of rain. Some could be a little bit on the heavy side. Meanwhile, across much of England and Wales, just a few spots of rain here and there across western areas, but across more central and eastern parts, it looks like it's going to stay dry as we go through this evening and the start of the night. Then overnight, some of the clouds going to break up. We will see some clear skies developing, and similar to some recent nights where we get those clear skies, it could turn a little fresh, a little chilly for some, but if you're under that cloud, then it's going to be another relatively mild night with temperatures for most towns and cities holding up in double figures. Sunday looks like a slightly brighter, sunnier day than today. From the get-go, there will be a bit more sunshine on offer, and yes, there will still be some outbreaks of rain, perhaps one or two for parts of East Anglia, and a bit more across parts of Scotland, particularly down the western side and also around the borders area, but most places having a mostly dry and slightly sunnier day, greater chance of seeing some sunshine, and with that, temperatures rising a couple of degrees higher than today. Whatever you're up to, have a great weekend.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, a charity based in Newcastle has launched legal action to stop civil servants representing their workplace at Pride events and from wearing rainbow lanyards.
Yes, the Christian Institute claims that such actions suggest that the civil service supports gender ideology. That's the belief that gender can be different from biological sex when it should instead remain impartial.
Now, the charity's deputy director said it gives the impression their minds were closed to alternative views. Well, joining us now is the Deputy Director of the Christian Institute, Simon Calvert, and political strategist Pablo Ohana. I'll start with you, Simon. What's the reasoning behind this legal action or this promotion of stopping rainbow lanyards and civil servants at Pride events?
So the reason is that civil servants are bound by laws on impartiality. And the British civil service, the idea of impartiality is kind of like the crown jewel, isn't it, in the idea of the Great British Civil Service. So if you have civil servants who, through pronouns in their emails, rainbow lanyards and participating in marches, are declaring their allegiance to gender ideology, that clearly breaches the law on impartiality. They're entitled, of course, to hold their own views and to be involved in campaigns in their personal time. The issue that we're concerned with is that they shouldn't be paid by the taxpayer to take part in Pride marches. The civil service shouldn't be funding their involvement in this, because it says to the public, civil servants have already taken sides on gender ideology, when the public, I mean, at the very least, it's a divisive issue. As a matter of fact, the public is overwhelmingly against most of the tenets of gender ideology.
Now, Pablo, excuse me, it has been established in court that Pride is a political organisation, and that was what was found in the case of Newcastle United's against Lindsay Smith. So doesn't it follow now that actually the whole of the civil service should stop, publicly at least, supporting political campaigns?
Listen, let's just start with one thing here. The Christian Institute is an unserious organisation. They oppose
Is that your argument?
age. They campaigned to keep Section 28, a nasty policy that promoted and encouraged widespread fear, mental health problems and isolation.
Pablo, we're here to debate about an issue.
people.
We're not here to debate
They
about the
fought
Christian
against
Institute or your
same-sex
background.
marriage
Let's talk
and
about the issue at
adoption
hand,
rights.
Pablo.
They funded the defence of 2 Christian hotel owners who refused a double room to a gay couple, which is in breach of British law. And unsurprisingly, the owners lost.
Is
the
your
CI
view
lost,
that...
and not only that, hold on, let me just clarify, because I think it's important that your viewers know where this opinion is coming from. Not only that, they lost their appeal too, because the vast majority of people in this country are tolerant and welcoming of diversity. In fact, the most recent polling showed that 90% of Brits think homosexuality should be accepted by society.
No one's
and if you zoom out
disputing
to
that,
include
Pablo.
Europe, that
No
increases
one's
to
disputing that.
95%.
Pablo, you've come on to play the ball, not the man. Let's go back to the debate at hand here, please. Can you respond
That
to
is the debate
Simon's
at hand.
argument?
The Christian
No, it isn't.
Institute is not a worthy organisation.
Do you
They're
agree
entitled to their
that civil
views.
servants
If you
should
want
be
to
impartial, Pablo?
If you want to talk about wasting taxpayers' money, how about wasting taxpayers' money to grab headlines for a few donations because they want to what, exploit the fact that a handful of people will donate to a Christian organisation in order to fund this ridiculous court case? Every court case they have run has been thrown out. Now, you can tell that they don't have a following. There are more
Okay, time's up, Pablo. You've made plenty of accusations there.
We've won
That's your
cases
time.
in the Supreme Court. I mean, this is just nonsense. So let's get back to the issue. So, I mean, I think actually, in a sense, Pablo illustrates the problem, because Pablo has clearly got a very particular set of political views that he wants to promote. He's entitled to do that. But what he's not entitled to do is to expect the civil service to promote those views for him officially. And that's the problem. And so, as you say, in the case of Lindsay Smith against Northumbria Police, the court ruled that the Pride movement is a clearly political movement. It's associated with a particular set of political propositions. And so the court ruled that it was wrong, unlawful, in fact, for Northumbria Police to be officially associated with the Pride March. Northumbria Police have had to start removing Pride and Progress flags from branded police cars. And that's the kind of impartiality I think that the public expect. And that's all this court case is about.
All right, Pablo, let's try this again.
Simon,
Respond to the argument.
why don't you tell the 500,000 gay Christians in our country which bit of British law protecting their freedoms you rip up first? Is it the right to marry? Is it the right not to be
We were so
discriminated
close to that.
And whilst we're at
We nearly got
why don't you tell the 12 million female Christians in Britain which of their liberties you're so desperate to scrap?
Well, Pablo,
The right
I'm
to
a
have
female
children, the right
Christian.
to
Pablo,
vote,
I'm a female Christian.
Inaccurate
view of the Christian
was
Institute.
the right to flee abusive and failed marriages. Why don't you tell those people which of their freedoms you are so desperate to get rid of?
I just don't know where to begin with this sort of character assassination. I can just reassure your viewers that Pablo is talking rubbish.
Well, it's all from your
to stick to the
website.
issue,
It's all from your
I think
website.
that I think I've been into meetings with civil servants. I went to the DFE once for a meeting, and we were talking about the clash between LGBTQ ideology and Christian views. That was the purpose of the meeting. When we got there, in the DFE, you stand on the ground floor and you look up 8, 10, 12 floors, and they had pride flags on every floor. So you had sort of 100-foot tall pride flag in the building. Now, if you're going to discuss the application of kind of LGBTQ ideology in the education sector, that does not leave you with the sense that, you know, you're going to get a fair hearing. Similarly, I had another meeting where the civil servants who turned up to the meeting all had rainbow lanyards. And then when they got the laptops out and opened them up, half of them had pride flags on the back of the laptops as well. So you sort of have a wall of these flags. Now, let me give you an example. If you worked for an oil company and you went to meet with officials and they had Just Stop Oil lanyards, or if you were Just Stop Oil and you met the officials and they all had Texaco lanyards, you know, either way you would think this is not balanced. So all we're saying is, civil servants, of course, entitled to their views, but when they're at work, they need to comply with the law on impartiality. Simple as that.
Pablo, the thing about lanyards and flags is that they display what side you're on. And of course, that's appropriate in your private life. But I think what Simon's saying here is that it's not appropriate for civil service, police, etc., to display to the public what side they are on these contested, unsettled issues. That's a fair point, isn't it?
No, it is not. These issues are not contested. They are absolutely settled. Our country is the greatest country in the world
Gender
because
self-ID,
it is diverse,
puberty blockers for
tolerant,
kids,
and progressive. We have an incredibly proud history of leading on social issues like exactly this. Things like gay marriage, same-sex marriage, gay values, the ability to teach these things, to let people know that they're not alone, that it is okay to be gay. They are settled. They are absolutely done.
What about gender self-ID and puberty blockers, which is a key platform of the Pride movement?
About the colour of someone's lanyard, because the vast majority of this country actually embody Christian values of loving thy neighbour much more than this sham extremist group does.
Well, there you have it. Pablo Ohana and Simon Calvert, thank you very much for your point of view this morning, and do let us know what you think. gbnews.com/USA.
Yes, well, in response, a government spokesperson said that their full focus is on delivering for working people, raising their living standards, reducing hospital waiting lists, putting more neighbourhood bobbies on the beat, and growing our economy.
To deliver that vital work, we'll provide an inclusive environment for all staff, boosting productivity and opening up opportunities across the country.
And the Public and Commercial Services Union, they declined to comment.
Well, still to come, we'll get the latest from America as Ghislaine Maxwell has denied ever witnessing any inappropriate behaviour by Donald Trump in newly released transcripts from the US Justice Department.
But first, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's a forecast for some of those top European travel destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed bag across Europe as we go through the next few days. There is some rain pushing into parts of Portugal, also affecting southwestern Spain as we go into tomorrow, but most of Spain actually having a largely fine day. A few showery outbreaks affecting parts of Italy, Greece and maybe Turkey too, but these won't be as heavy nor as thundery as we've seen recently. And then through into next week, whilst most places will stay largely fine, across some areas, France, Germany for example, the risk of some heavy thundery downpour.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens. Opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, the jailed ex-girlfriend of convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, that's Ghislaine Maxwell, has defended the US president.
Yes, Maxwell told the US Justice Department that she never saw President Trump in an inappropriate setting and that he was never inappropriate with anybody. Well, joining us now is US political journalist Laurie Laird. Laurie, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Will Trump's team be relieved about this news?
I think very much so. Look, this is a peculiar story because there was never any indication that Trump was involved with anything sordid with Jeffrey Epstein. The fact that the two men knew each other was not particularly surprising given the New York circles that both ran in. Trump has said that he had terminated his friendship with Epstein in 2004. There's been no evidence to contradict that claim. There's been no photographs of them post 2004. So it's not surprising that they knew each other, and there's never really been any accusation that Trump did anything improper when he was in Epstein's company. So none of what came out last night was surprising. But yes, I think the Trump team will be very pleased with Maxwell's testimony.
Okay, so,
clearly,
Laurie,
that's why it was released.
If the Trump team are going to be enthused by this, do you think it will calm down the critics, those even within MAGA world, who think this is a bigger issue than perhaps the White House thinks?
That's a very good question, and I'll say I was surprised at how the MAGA world really, kind of went against this. How concerned the MAGA world was with these allegations. One thing that is concerning, or could concern people in the MAGA world and further afield, is that Maxwell may not be a credible witness simply because Donald Trump has the ability to pardon her or commute her sentence. So I think anything she says could be subject to questions.
Now, of course, this has been the first issue that has really started to split Republicans. But of course, there may still be more to come. Are there any worries along that front, or is this really dealt with now?
I mean, I think the big question is, one of the things that Maxwell said is that she did not believe that Epstein committed suicide. And I think that question will remain. But I suspect this story will start to go away. And one thing that Donald Trump is so skilled at is what he calls and his people calls flooding the zone. There's always so much in any given day in Donald Trump's presidency. There's so much information that comes out. So he has become quite skilled at changing the subject. You're absolutely right when you say that this one sort of stuck around for a while. But I don't know that this one will run with the general public.
OK, Laurie Laird, thank you so much for your time this morning. But Miriam, we've got lots more to come on Saturday Morning Live today, including more of today's top stories. We'll be going live to a migrant hotel protest up in Liverpool.
And much more reaction to Nigel Farage's plans for mass deportation. So don't go anywhere.
Expect
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bank holiday weekend for many parts of the UK. Initially quite cloudy, particularly through today, but there will be some sunny spells in places. You can see that high pressure over the UK at the moment. It should hold on for the next few days before then low pressure starts moving in from the Atlantic to give a bit more of an unsettled flavour as we go through next week. But lots of cloud around through this afternoon. There'll be some bright or sunny spells, best of the sunshine most likely across southwestern parts of England and perhaps northeast Scotland as well. But overall, a lot of cloud around, could be some light rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland, northern England too. Temperatures here, the high teens to low 20s, perhaps up to 23 or 24 across southwest England in the best of the sunny spells. Into this evening time, some glimmers of sunshine across northeast Scotland here, temperatures 15 to 17 Celsius. A weak weather front giving some patchy light rain across western parts, which also is more evident across Northern Ireland here. One or two heavier showers possible too. The cloud thick enough for some drizzle over the high ground of northern England into Wales as well. Otherwise, a lot of cloud to end the day. There'll be some bright or sunny spells that push through from time to time ahead of dusk. And then as we go through the evening and overnight, it should be largely dry. There will be variable amounts of cloud. Cloud thick enough for some light rain and drizzle across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland once more, perhaps down the east coast of England too. There could be some mist and fog patches forming with light winds, and generally with more cloud around, temperatures higher than recent nights, so double figures for all. And a mixed start to Sunday morning. Some outbreaks of rain across western Scotland to start the day. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells. And I'm hopeful as we go through the day, there should be more in the way of sunshine across most parts. But the cloud will bubble up as we move through into the afternoon, so the sunshine will come and go. But it should just generally feel warmer for everyone, and temperatures a little higher too, reaching the mid-20s a little more widely. See you again later.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Saturday, the 23rd of August. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Saturday Morning Live.
Well, a fresh wave of protests outside hotels used as temporary accommodation for asylum seekers is expected across the country this weekend. Well, that's as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of an asylum hotel in Epping. Our reporter Doogie Beattie is on the ground in Liverpool.
We are right in the centre of Liverpool, outside the historical St George's Hall. Round about midday, the first protest, which is a pro-immigration protest, is due to start. The second anti-immigration protest should get underway at about 1 o'clock. We'll have more.
You've been Keir Starmer's political prisoner?
Absolutely. And me and several other people. Like I said, it's important to remember that it wasn't just me.
Well, Lucy Connelly has hit out at the Prime Minister in her first interview following her release from prison.
And an Apprentice star speaks out. Lubna Zaidi appeared on the hit show 5 years ago, but she's now turned her attention to some of the issues facing Britain. She'll be talking to us in the studio about her work.
And millions across Britain are facing travel disruptions as the bank holiday weekend begins with a heavy traffic, rail strike and ongoing engineering work. It's a bit of a mess, that.
Well, the biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debate over the next hour. I'm Miriam Cates.
I'm Charlie Peters. Your weekend starts here. Miriam, I'm really looking forward to having Lubna Zaidi in the studio. Very interesting voice. She has a YouTube channel where she puts out her perspectives a lot of the time, often going against the grain from her own Muslim community background, which has attracted a bit of a negative response, to say the very least. Understatement of the year, that. You'll hear more about that later.
Absolutely. Of course, we've got the latest on more anti-migrant hotel protests. They're still going on. Doogie Beattie will be live for us in Liverpool with all the latest.
Yeah, that's going right across the country today, and it comes, of course, we've got that Home Office challenge now against the legal ruling in Epping. But in Wirral and in Tamworth and potentially other Labour councils as well, there could be a bit of a revolt from the Labour side. So let us know your take on that. Are you in one of those local areas affected by these hotels? Do you want your council to put in a legal challenge just like Epping? Let us know, gbnews.com/your say.
But before we do anything else, Bethany Elsey has all your latest headlines.
Thank you both. Good morning. Here's your top stories from the GB newsroom at 2 minutes past 11. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights would leave the UK every day under plans to tackle illegal immigration. In an interview with The Times, the Reform UK leader says Britain is facing what he calls a massive crisis and that the only way forward is to detain and deport all migrants who arrive illegally. His plans would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture, as well as other international agreements. The emergency legislation would ban those who come to the UK on small boats from claiming asylum, and whilst they await deportation, would be held in detention centres on surplus RAF bases. Nationwide protests and counter-protests are expected to be held outside hotels housing asylum seekers today. Demonstrations under the Abolish Asylum System slogan will be held in major towns and cities across England, including Bristol, Liverpool, Newcastle and central London. Rallies will also be held across Scotland and Wales. Protesters with the group Stand Up to Racism will also be out in force. Lucy Connelly has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. The 42-year-old was jailed for stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers online after the Southport murders last year. The former childminder and wife of a Conservative councillor was released from HMP Peterborough on Thursday. Miss Connelly will meet with officials from Donald Trump's administration later to discuss her concerns around free speech in Britain. Ghislaine Maxwell has told US officials that she never saw Donald Trump act inappropriately. In an interview with the US Justice Department in July, the convicted sex trafficker said President Donald Trump was, quote, always very cordial and very kind. Miss Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse underage girls, also denied any knowledge of a client list. She added that she does not believe Epstein died by suicide. The interview transcript was released as pressure is mounting on the Justice Department to disclose more about the Epstein probe. At least 5 people have been killed and many others injured after a tour bus crashed and rolled over on a major road in upstate New York. The bus was returning to New York City from Niagara Falls with 54 passengers on board when the driver lost control. Several people were thrown from the bus as the windows shattered, while some became trapped in the wreckage. Lyle Menendez, the older of the notorious brothers who were jailed for murdering their parents in Los Angeles in 1989, has been denied parole. It comes a day after his brother Eric Menendez received the same ruling. The pair, now aged 57 and 54, were given life sentences without the chance of parole 30 years ago after killing their parents with a shotgun at their Beverly Hills home. But both appealed for release after a judge reduced their sentences earlier this year. They claimed they acted in self-defence. If you're headed on holiday this bank holiday weekend, be warned there'll be long delays on the roads and disruption to train services. The RAC is urging drivers to set off as early as possible or be prepared to stay longer in traffic. Members of the RMT union who work at the train operator Cross Country are walking out today and Monday, affecting services throughout the weekend. And Network Rail are warning passengers some major routes will be closed for engineering works. And Pob Luck Cymru, the Princess of Wales, has wished Wales women good luck as they kick off their Rugby World Cup campaign against Scotland. This will be the 3rd World Cup meeting between the two sides after Wales defeated Scotland in the 1994 quarter-final and during the pool stage in 2022. But Scotland have won each of their last 3 tests against Wales outside of the series. Kick-off at Salford Community Stadium is at 2:45. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates. And we should make clear that although I am going to Britain's newsroom, which I'm very excited about, much sadder about leaving you, Charlie, but Saturday Morning Live is not going anywhere.
Yeah, the show continues. You haven't got to worry about that. I'm not going anywhere. They can't drag me off this set, that's for sure. I love my Saturday mornings here. I am sad to be losing Miriam, but very excited about the future of this programme, and we'll see who comes to join me next. But Miriam, it's been an absolute pleasure. And you've brought in some sweet mugs with our wonderful producer Katie in the middle.
Who you'll recognise from the news bulletins.
Yes.
So we now have our mugs. Your weekend
legendary Katie Bowen. Yes, your weekend.
No one will steal them in the office.
Your weekend starts. I'm taking mine home. I'm not leaving this one.
I think that is sensible, actually.
So the other presenters, they'll be super jealous about that lying around. But let's go
back to the news.
Back to what we're doing our jobs for, shall we?
Yes. Anyway, our main stories today: protests outside hotels housing migrants are set to take place across the country this weekend.
Yes, counter-protesters also set to gather outside these hotels, including demonstrations from the ever-busy Stand Up to Racism group. Now, the latest round of protests come as the Home Office will seek to appeal against the High Court's refusal to allow it to intervene in the case of an asylum hotel in Epping.
Well, joining us now live from Liverpool is GB News reporter Doogie Beattie. Doogie, good morning. What's the atmosphere like in Liverpool?
Well, good afternoon, Miriam. Good afternoon, Charlie. Yes, well, so far, very, very quiet, might say. We are right in the heart of Liverpool at St George's Hall. At about 1 o'clock today, there is a anti-immigration parade or protest due to start here, and we do believe it may actually try and march down through the city centre itself. There is one that was due to be here at 12 o'clock. Now, that could be forming up somewhere else, and that is Stand Up Against Racism and come down to here, but so far all is actually very, very quiet. There is a few people starting to gather on the steps there. We believe they are there for the 1 o'clock protest, but so far in Liverpool, there's probably more police gathered around than there is actually protesters. But that's the way these things go. We've reported this many, many times, and within 10 minutes you can have a huge crowd. But it will be interesting to see what the size of the crowds are today, because there is so many protests split right across the country. And things like the Bell Hotel in Epping, that was locals coming to that, and they became very, very effective in it because they did swell their numbers from within their own community. We will wait and see throughout the day to see how many numbers actually turn up at these protests, and that if you do start to get big numbers when there are so many protests, then that becomes a real problem for the government and for the police services here. I mean, we know from what happened in Northern Ireland, the rioting and so forth that took place there, it was £1 million a night in police resources. Hopefully it doesn't get to any of that here on the mainland, but it could, if there start to be too many protests, really start to push on police budgets.
Well, Dougie, there are going to be 33 planned protests today. They're happening right across the country. On GB News all day, I expect we'll be hearing from people at many of those protests. But in Liverpool, this has been a regular sight for those demonstrations. What is the sense of frustration there about that hotel? And the counter-protesters, what have they been saying about what should happen next?
Well, really, in Liverpool, I mean, I've had a chat with a few people this morning, and most of them, I mean, Liverpool, out of probably most of the cities, Liverpool would be very, very multicultural. And it is actually quite ironic that, you know, you have people that say, you know, stand up to racism. This is not a race subject. This is really about people saying you're welcome in if you want to come to our culture, if you want to contribute to British society. And in amongst lots of the people that I have spoke to this morning are people that are from different countries all over the world that have settled in Britain, and they too are frustrated about the amount of illegal immigrants that are coming here and how much it's costing them, even after they've set up home and done things the legal way and are having to pay their taxes, etc. That's really what's at the bottom of this. So to say that it's racism is a stretch. And unfortunately, the more that we see this going on, Charlie, the more that I look back to 1969, 70s in Northern Ireland and see how that starts to split away from racism, people calling it racism when it's not, and it starts to turn to something pretty much harder than that, which is sectarianism. And I really do hope for the people of Britain it doesn't start to go down those lines. But there is a real push from all the people that I have spoke to this morning, multicultural, that they do not want protests, but they also do not want undocumented immigrants coming in to the country here, and a country that many have set up home in and called their own.
Dougie BT, thank you very much for that report, and we'll be going back to Dougie throughout the day.
Now, Nigel Farage has unveiled his blueprint for the mass deportation of hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers who come to Britain on small boats. Amid all of these protests, he's pledging 5 deportation flights per day.
Now, this plan would take Britain out of the European Convention on Human Rights and opt out of the UN Convention Against Torture and other international agreements.
Now, Reform's proposed emergency legislation, which is known as the Illegal Migration Mass Deportation Bill, would bar those who come to Britain on small boats from ever claiming asylum.
Well, with us now is human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. A clear attack on human rights legislation here from Reform and Nigel Farage. Do you think it's highly likely now, after the next election, that we will be leaving the ECHR?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think it's particularly likely that Farage is, coming anywhere near power anyway. But generally, if we just look at the proposals anyway, I mean, obviously, you can say anything, firstly, when you're not in power. And secondly, if you're just going to do away, rip up the law book, the rule book as we know it. I mean, if anything, looking at the state of, different countries, different territories around the world right now, how people are suffering. If anything, we need to strengthen those laws, strengthen human rights laws, strengthen our laws against torture. We've seen people, whether it's legally genocide or not, whether it's just mass killings, children starving, whether it's famine or not. We can, argue about the technicalities, whether it meets legal definitions, but the point is that is all happening.
Yeah,
if anything, we need to strengthen those.
Yeah,
and
you've said that already. When Nigel Farage was challenged with that in an interview with The Times, he said, look, I'm really sorry, but just because the world is a bad place doesn't mean that Britain should have to deal with all of it. Because under your perspective, if I'm reading you right, in every country where there is persecution or violence or war, that could mean that every single person in those countries facing those problems could come to Britain. Surely that is a stance that can't hold. And when we look at the stats on economic contributions, it just doesn't work out in the long term.
Yeah, but that's what we've been hearing for more than a century now. That's what we heard during the World Wars. That's what we thought, if all the Nazi, victims of the Nazis, we started bringing them in, the UK would be inundated. But obviously that's not what happens if everyone takes their fair share. The point is, Turkey, Pakistan, so many other countries, and we keep saying we want to deport people to those countries. But the point is, those are the countries that take in most refugees anyway. And then also, even within Europe, we take in a very, very small share. So either we're saying we won't take in anyone. I just don't understand what the argument is that, if we see people burning... The argument
is that the ECHR, the Refugee Convention, were formed in a very, very different time, as you've said yourself, after the Second World War. And the kind of legislation that it created was essentially to protect individuals from oppression by their own states. Now, I think we can all agree that states not torturing their own citizens is a good thing. But the problem with the ECHR is it's become this living convention where torture is now interpreted by some judges as what most people would think of as something far, far less than that. Isn't the problem that the ECHR and other conventions are far, far removed from their original intent?
No. The point is, yes, warfare has changed. Communities change, society evolves, and that's the thing. So, obviously, in any case, any law, that's the whole point of courts and judges. They interpret our laws. So are we saying that, we really need to be sticking to the definition that we had 100 years ago? I don't think, how does any of the, how would, pre-World War or post-World War laws, if they stuck where they were, if they were stagnant, how would they serve any purpose in modern society?
Well, lots of our law is 100, 150 years old, and that doesn't stop it being relevant.
Well, it does, and that's the thing. Not all laws are suitable for purpose, and that's why we keep evolving them. That's why we have law commissions. That's exactly what Nigel Farage is saying now. We need to either leave the laws or we need to reform the laws, and that's the point. Of course, law has to reform and change.
Sure. Talking about this is a plan for potentially 4 years down the line that will take a year and a half to action. Do you think that this sort of intervention is going to push the government to act more radically now? We're proposing here, Nigel Farage saying building detention centres, 24,000 places, costing £2.5 billion. What can the Labour government do now to deal with this crisis as the small boats crossings are surging, 50% up on last year?
There's a few different parts to that question. One is, what do we think the government would do, or what do we think they should do? So the point is, I think what they should do, for instance, what we did with Ukraine, what we did to a limited extent in Afghanistan, the point is, just open up safe legal routes for asylum seekers, send flights, treat them as humans, bring them over, and then we can't complain they came here illegally. But we don't do that for anyone, do we? We've never done that. I don't know, it was probably, 50, 60 years, we suddenly set up a scheme for Ukraine. If just before those people arrived here, we had asked the people of Britain, can we afford to incorporate another 200, 300,000 people here? Everyone said no, the country would collapse.
But are we incorporating them, sure? Because I think a lot of them are going back, aren't they? And they don't have access to indefinite leave to remain, which is quite different to people who are arriving on small boats. It's a completely separate route.
The small boats isn't really a route, is it? That's the point.
It clearly is.
Well, yes, but the point is that is no route. That's people having to find a route when there is none. And that's the difference. So obviously, I'm not saying, I don't think anyone suggests you bring people over and give them indefinite leave the first day. Yes, when the situation improves, send them back, or they will go back. But that's the thing. Do we think we're going to, in a few years, be sending back these Ukrainian families forcibly if they say we don't go back? The children in schools here, the children growing up, are we going to send them back if they're not going back? So, I mean, I don't think we will anyway. But secondly, why not give everyone that chance? We treated them as humans, and similarly, they treat us gratefully, thinking, yes, these people kept us safe. If we force people to make their way in, there's no legal routes, then what are they going to do? Of course, they're going to break in.
Well, Sharab, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I do think this argument has completely run out of road now. You're not a country if you don't have a border. You don't have a border if you can't deport people who shouldn't be here.
Yeah, and I think the call for safe and legal routes always just means more mass migration from places.
And we do have safe and legal routes. The idea that we should take 150 million, that's about the number of people who are probably eligible for refugee status. The idea that one country should be responsible for all those people is just not sensible.
Yeah, and I think what's going to be very interesting is to see how the British government engages with the Taliban on how to deal with deportations there. That's going to be fascinating. I think they're going to be forced to do it. It is the government in charge there. If we had a problem with it, we should have done something about it. In fact, we did, and it was a real mistake. So, yeah, that could be one to watch as well.
Well, lots more coming up because the Apprentice star, Lubna Zaidi, has spoken out. She appeared on a hit show 5 years ago, but she's now turned her attention to some of the issues facing Britain. She'll be joining us in the studio to talk about her story.
But next, what are some of your motorway pet peeves? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. We'll be discussing that and all of the top stories of the day with our paper review panel. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, to look through the top stories of today, we're delighted to be joined by political commentator Judita De Silva and the deputy political editor of The Spectator, James Hill. Welcome back to the studio. What should we start with, Charlie?
Oh, well, let's start with Farage. Go on, his deportation plan. We're going to be talking about it all day, aren't we?
Yeah.
But there's
There's
more details to unpack, Judita, because he says that Britain is facing a massive crisis. I think the question we were just asking Shoaib Khan, the human rights lawyer there, is this going to force more action now? He's putting forward plans. A lot of criticism about reform is that they don't really say much. They make a lot of noise, but don't put forward any solid proposals. That's starting to happen now. Is that going to have an effect in the government stance?
Like I said, it's getting to a point where they have to do this now. You have to put forward plans because they are becoming very viable as potential leadership. But what they're putting forward is stuff we have seen before. When you think about offshore processing, there's mentions of Ascension Island, which I think is how you're going to actually make that work. He's got to prove himself as a diplomat, because you will not do this quickly. You will not do it with a singular solution. You will require collaboration from Europe as well as international partners. All of that costs money. Where is the money going to come from? But one thing that everyone on both sides of the aisle has to agree with, there is an immigration problem. What happened is that during the Tory leadership, it was compounded because they stopped processing asylum claims. You've still got more people coming in. They're coming in more droves. So while you're trying to say that, give Labour their credit, speed of processing has gone up. They are spending less on asylum in the past year than the previous year, but the problem is so big now it's not making a dent.
But James, one of the notable things about this plan, which is really a lot of the things have been taken from the Tories' failed Rwanda bill, but what it doesn't address is the potentially up to 1 million people who are here, not as asylum seekers, but who are here illegally, they've overstayed visas, or the Home Office has lost track of them. Do you think any political party will dare to address that issue?
I think that it's going to be something where they have pressure on, certainly. But as you say, Miriam, there's hundreds of thousands of people in this country illegally. And in the Times article, it talks about a figure of a 24,000-strong detention centre. That is completely not up to the kind of challenge of getting rid of these people who are here illegally if you want to detain and deport them, as Farage says. So I think that's going to be a huge issue. I would also make the point, I know we're talking about the Overton window shifting on all of this, but I do remember at the beginning of last year when people were being taken in those cars and stuff, there were all those protests that formed around them. There were sort of community groups forming to stop that happening, people being deported. So I do think that you're going to need lots more resources. And I also think, frankly, that Farage needs to be making these arguments for the next 4 or 5 years for that next right-wing government, if it's going to be Conservative, Reform, or a kind of amalgamation of the two, because that's going to be something that we see a lot of all over the pictures on the BBC, etc.
Well, let's move on to a different story quickly, because Britain's wheelchair basketball team, they've won a few matches recently, done a very good job, but they are in the spotlight for the wrong reason, according to critics, because they've been accused of being deeply disrespectful and offensive because they turned their backs on the Israeli national anthem during a Nations Cup competition match. Judita, this is a publicly funded team. They get taxpayers' money to promote themselves ahead of the Paralympics. Should they be engaging in this sort of political behaviour?
They have a right to, because throughout history we've seen really significant moments where people with a platform have used sporting occasions to make a stand. But why this breaks my heart is because if you listen to a lot of voices, particularly from the Jewish community and even Israelis, the decisions being made by Netanyahu and his government have a knock-on effect on them. They're now the people who are going to be feeling the brunt of people's negative feeling towards the decisions of a government where they themselves are helpless and haven't done so directly. And we're going to see more and more of this happen because people who are against the inhuman genocide in Gaza feel like they have no other recourse but to stand up in their own way.
But, James, there are so many different countries in the world that do have appalling human rights records. Do you think the Paralympic team would have taken the same response to, I don't know, the national anthem of Iran?
Probably not, no. And I think that, for instance, I think the conflict in Somalia, which is currently going on, that's killed twice as many people. Sudan. That's the problem, is that how often do you enforce this? And, of course, we saw this big debate around Russia and Ukraine a few years ago when, for instance, Wimbledon wouldn't allow the Russians to play. It's a really difficult, fraught issue. Politics and sport, as you were saying there, have always been kind of intertwined. People always say keep politics out of sport. Truth is, I think they'll always make those decisions. But in response to your point, Charlie, was this a mistake? I do think it was a mistake because, as you say, they're in receipt of public money. And are they going to be enforcing this on a consistent basis? Probably not. So I expect there'll be a big outcry, and it was interesting. I think you had Ian Austin in the Telegraph talking about it. Yes. There's going to be people criticising it.
Yeah, Ian Austin, Judita, he said that this is a team in which Jewish and Arab players strive together for victory. This sport should transcend borders, and this is reflecting the diverse nature of Israeli society. They're not a political team. They're a wheelchair basketball team. They didn't even know about the backs being turned because they were facing the other direction themselves. Yeah. You have to appreciate, surely, that Arab members of that team would have felt as though there's no reason for the Brits to sort of take up solidarity on their behalf.
No, but this is a very unique situation, because what people have seen over the past 2 years is the situation gets progressively worse. The people in leadership get progressively emboldened and flagrant, and everyone feels on a very human level helpless. So I feel in my little patch of land, in my little way, I can contribute. And sporting events, look at it, we're having a conversation about it now. It has had the desired effect.
Well, we just need to read this right of reply from the British Wheelchair Basketball Association. They are aware of the incident during the Israeli national anthem at the Nations Cup. We are continuing discussions internally, they say.
Let's stick with sport, because Gen Z, they prefer a gym date to dinner, James. What do you make of this? Apparently lots of people no longer want to be brushing knees under a candlelit dinner table. They're more interested in getting sweaty and pushing some endorphins out before they sort of challenge their romantic links.
Well, thank God I'm not Gen Z. I feel, as a 1995 baby, I just escaped under the wire because, yeah, I don't think this is very much my experience but maybe I'm dating the wrong people. But, yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, look, I'm not sure I come from... I struggle to have my best when I'm all dolled up, let alone when I'm in the gym. A sight no one should ever see, which is why I prefer a home gym. But, look, I mean, good luck to them. I suppose it gets to see them in all sorts of situations. And, you know, it's sort of like the old thing... Marilyn Monroe quote about if you can't handle me at your worst. I mean, if you really see someone there's puce red, plum in the face, and you still fancy them, then maybe they're the one.
Do you know, I think this is really interesting, because actually the idea of a dinner date is quite intense. Yeah. Everybody's good at small talk, what you're going to talk about, whereas doing an activity alongside somebody is perhaps a much more authentic way to get to know them.
It is. It's kind of... Because even going to the gym myself, it is a big thing. Like, it's a couple thing to go together. And also, what I've noticed is that when women go to the gym, it's like they look amazing. The makeup is done, the hair is done, the outfit is, like, on point. And I'm thinking, I look like a scruff monkey next to them. But then it's the new landscape for socialising. And also, you're showing from the very get-go, we have similar ideals when it comes to physiology and being healthy. And that's a great platform to build your relationship on.
All right, Judita, James, thank you so much. I mean, if you had to do a sport for a first date, what would it be?
Nothing too sweaty.
Swimming.
Yeah, but you can't... Well, maybe, I'm not sure.
Breaststroke.
Well, nobody looks good in goggles, Charlie, let's be honest.
Can't necessarily speak.
Can't speak,
as you bob under the water.
Don't wear a swimming cap, that would be my advice.
All right, then, let's go now for the Great British Giveaway, because we're going to offer you the chance to live mortgage or rent-free for a year, £5,000 in cash, or grab yourself a £15,000 tax-free cash lump sum. You're not going to want to miss out, and if you don't want to, here are all the details you're going to need.
It's the final week to see how you could win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. And if you don't have a mortgage or rent to pay, lucky you, we'll give you £15,000 tax-free cash instead. Hurry, lines close this Friday. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, we've got lots more to come on today's show, but first of all, let's get the news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good morning. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Nigel Farage has vowed that if he becomes Prime Minister, 5 deportation flights carrying illegal migrants would leave the UK every day. Nationwide protests and counter-protests are expected to be held outside hotels housing asylum seekers today. Lucy Connelly, who was jailed for inciting racial hatred after the Southport murders, has accused Sir Keir Starmer of holding her as a political prisoner and says she's considering legal action against the police. Convicted sex trafficker and associate of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, has told US officials that she never saw President Donald Trump act inappropriately. And millions expected to travel on the roads and rail network this bank holiday weekend are being warned of long delays. Those are the headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, it's bank holiday weekend and it's not raining, but there's plenty of traffic out there. We'll have all the latest on the bank holiday travel.
And in the studio, we'll be speaking to Lubna Zaidi, a former Apprentice star. She's been speaking out against cultural issues, and she says it's forced her to move home due to threats. We'll be getting all of that coming up after the break on Saturday Morning Live.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It's a bank holiday weekend for many parts of the UK. Initially quite cloudy, particularly through today, but there will be some sunny spells in places. You can see that high pressure over the UK at the moment. It should hold on for the next few days before then low pressure starts moving in from the Atlantic to give a bit more of an unsettled flavour as we go through next week. But lots of cloud around through this afternoon. There'll be some bright or sunny spells, best of the sunshine most likely across southwestern parts of England and perhaps northeast Scotland as well. But overall, a lot of cloud around, could be some light rain and drizzle across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, Northern England too. Temperatures here, the high teens to low 20s, perhaps up to 23 or 24 across southwest England in the best of the sunny spells. Into this evening time, some glimmers of sunshine across northeast Scotland here, temperatures 15 to 17 Celsius. A weak weather front giving some patchy light rain across western parts, which also is more evident across Northern Ireland here. One or two heavier showers possible too. The cloud thick enough for some drizzle over the high ground of Northern England into Wales as well. Otherwise, a lot of cloud to end the day. There'll be some bright or sunny spells that push through from time to time ahead of dusk. And then as we go through the evening and overnight, it should be largely dry. There will be variable amounts of cloud. Cloud thick enough for some light rain and drizzle across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland once more, perhaps down the east coast of England too. There could be some mist and fog patches forming with light winds, and generally with more cloud around, temperatures higher than recent nights, so double figures for all. And a mixed start to Sunday morning. Some outbreaks of rain across western Scotland to start the day. Elsewhere, some bright or sunny spells. And I'm hopeful as we go through the day, there should be more in the way of sunshine across most parts. But the cloud will bubble up as we move through into the afternoon, so the sunshine will come and go. But it should just generally feel warmer for everyone, and temperatures a little higher too, reaching the mid-20s a little more widely. See you again later.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Back to Saturday Morning Live. Well, our next guest was a star of Lord Sugar's The Apprentice 5 years ago, but more recently, Lubna Zaidi has been speaking about issues surrounding religion and integration in Britain.
Well, Lubna says she's had to flee her hometown amid backlash from her comments. And she joins us now in the studio. Lubna, welcome to Saturday Morning Live. Now, tell us a little bit about your story. You were famous, first of all, for being on The Apprentice, but you've moved on to talking about cultural issues, particularly those affecting Muslims in the UK. Why have you chosen to do this?
I have chosen to do this. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I've chosen to do this because I love this country. I was born here. However, I do feel like this country is getting really divided and we are torn, and I feel people from my background, i.e. the Muslim Pakistani heritage community, can do more to address the concerns that people have. Sadly, what I've experienced is that there is no willingness to do that. So I started a YouTube channel. I started addressing the concerns that people have about grooming gangs, honour killings, misogyny, etc. And I encouraged other people from my background to condemn what I call the bad apples within the community. Because sadly, because their voices, the extremists, the crazy people, because their voice is so loud, it gives the impression to someone else outside of our race and faith that maybe we are all like this. And if that's not true, surely people shouldn't have an issue condemning the bad apples. But what I found is there seems to be a silent, I would say sadly, a majority that I've experienced that seems to be in support of the extremists. Because instead of condemning the extremists for threatening me and threatening my life, which is the reason why I had to flee my home, they've been actually very happy that I was taking a step back from my YouTube channel. So I'm absolutely disappointed and disgusted with people from my background. There are a few good people that have started speaking out. Sadly, there is a lot of fear. I just feel like we can do more, we should do more, and we need to, because this country is divided.
Are you getting a lot of private correspondence from what you're referring to, I guess, as the silent minority of people who are concerned about these broader issues? Are they getting in touch with you saying, thank you for what you're doing, stay strong, keep speaking out? Or has that been quite limited as well?
There have been people from the Muslim background and the Pakistani background who have been contacting me, even people in Pakistan saying, do you know what, we're so grateful you're doing this, because even we would like positive social reform. We would like to progress. And sadly, because we don't address the issues, even within Pakistan, things are escalating and we are not doing as well as we could have. However, again, there is a lot of fear, and people generally even don't feel comfortable speaking about these issues within the UK. And I personally do not feel comfortable and confident, especially because of the mass illegal migration coming into this country from people from my race and faith, which I know will struggle to integrate and assimilate into this country. Even the people born here are struggling, right? So the people coming fresh off the boat, I mean, I'm sorry, but I am shocked at how we have mismanaged this whole situation in the country. I feel like we don't have any borders. I don't even feel like this is Great Britain anymore. I'm thinking of seeking asylum in America now, or some other, literally Americans are calling me and saying, do you not seek asylum here because Great Britain is now gone. So at what point are we going to be honest that this country needs proper leadership and we need to sort things out?
Well, the government will say that they're getting in touch with these issues, that they're engaging with the small boats crisis, for example. They're saying they're going to smash the gangs, and they also say that we have freedom of speech and the opportunity to deal with integration issues. Are you concerned that because a lot of people in your community are worried about speaking out, that maybe the state and the police and social services, they're also nervous about engaging with your side of the argument as well?
I would say, do we really have freedom of speech? I mean, I've had to flee my home in Luton. I lived there for 40 years because I was getting death threats. People turned up, they found where I live. And even now they're saying, we're going to find wherever you are in the UK. We've got eyes everywhere. We've got people everywhere. So, I mean, what am I going to do? Wait for someone to attack me? So I don't feel comfortable at all. And there are lots of people who are looking up to me from my community who are watching and waiting to see what happens with me. Am I going to get the support that I need in this country? If not, sadly, that's going to discourage more people from speaking up. So I'm almost a test case. So I do need the support from everybody because, let's face it, if someone else speaks up about the issues that I do, they will be falsely accused of Islamophobia, racism. But the fact is, I'm sorry, guys, if you're coming from my race and religion, we need to address the concerns people have. No one is saying all Muslims are bad. No one is saying all Pakistanis are bad. But you have to admit there are serious issues. And sadly, Britain is having to deal with things like honour killings and all this kind of stuff, which would have been unheard of before. And that's not fair to the existing people in this country. The English people who have an English heritage from hundreds and thousands of years, it's not fair on them. They didn't want us here. Whether you like it or not, these are the facts. They didn't want us here. We're here now. And what, sadly, people from my community, when I say my community, I'm speaking about people from my race and religion. Sadly, what we're doing is we're proving these English people right, that they were scared to have us, and they were right? So we can do more, we need to do more. Call out the grooming gangs, it's absolutely disgusting. No one is saying that all Muslims are paedophiles or all Pakistanis are, but when you are not when you are not condemning these people in the way they need to be condemned, like how dare these people, how dare they do this, then what are you expecting other people are going to think of us? And go on, yeah, sorry. I can go on and on. I can literally talk forever about this. I'm so passionate about this.
This is a very contested issue, and of course, you know, many people have been very welcoming to people from all kinds of faiths and none. But certainly there are integration issues. I think many people would agree with that. But you've been extremely brave, and thank you so much for coming on the programme this morning.
Thank you.
Really good to speak to you, Lubna.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we will still have much more coming up today. It's a bank holiday weekend, of course. Are you facing travel chaos on your getaway? Let us know. We'll be getting the latest on disruption next.
And more extraordinary pictures coming out of Hawaii today. An incredible lava fountain. You're watching Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed bag across Europe as we go through the next few days. There is some rain pushing into parts of Portugal, also affecting southwestern Spain as we go into tomorrow, but most of Spain actually having a largely fine day. A few showery outbreaks affecting parts of Italy, Greece and maybe Turkey too, but these won't be as heavy nor as thundery as we've seen recently. And then through into next week, whilst most places will stay largely fine, across some areas, France, Germany for example, the risk of some heavy thundery downpour.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We're reigning supreme this morning. I'm so happy.
Did you watch it then? Did you enjoy it?
I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
Honestly. Why did it come down to the crunch like that?
Because it's England. You know what? No matter whether it's the women or the men, it still keeps you on the edge of your seat. But they've got this resilience. The thing is that we've never seen with the men before. I suppose it's changed a little bit, but it really is that. I don't want to use any cliches, but that's my job. That's my job. Never say die attitude. And it was terrific. Do you know, though, for how long, out of the 3 knockout games that England played after the group stage, for how long they were actually ahead?
Go on.
Don't worry, I'll tell you. 4 minutes and 52 seconds across 3 entire games was the amount of time they were actually ahead. Doesn't matter. Doesn't make any difference.
No. Yeah.
They came back and they won it. It was brilliant.
Would it have been better? I was going to say.
Are you looking at
you know, but in terms of if we'd had a stronger game, if we'd been really punching in this rather than it going right down to the wire.
No, I don't think so. No. I don't think it really. I honestly don't think it matters. It's just about who wins, and when you've got a trophy. Which is up for grabs there, and also for the second time that the Lionesses have done it. And they were underdogs. I mean, they were.
Yeah.
You'll have players that will say, "Oh no, I don't think so." And I said to you on Friday, there wasn't much in it.
Yeah, they were equal.
But the Spanish team were the favourites. They're the world champions, and also pound for pound. If you look player for player, again, there's another cliche for you. They would have been the better side, but it's a team game. It's how everybody reacts together, how everybody plays alongside each other, and the management.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Welcome back. And it's not just the weekend, it's bank holiday weekend. Just begun, but millions of people embarking on their getaways are being warned over long delays on the roads and disruption to train services.
Yes, the RAC has urged drivers to set off as early as possible, but not before the end of Saturday Morning Live, in order to be prepared to spend longer in traffic.
Well, rail workers are striking today and Monday, with services expected to be affected throughout the bank holiday period. Well, with us now is travel journalist Hayley Sparks. Good morning, Hayley. Travel disruptions, they're almost as reliable as rain on bank holiday weekends, aren't they?
Oh, I know. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, this is the last bank holiday before Christmas, and the RAC are predicting that 3.4 million of us will be taking leisure trips today. So, if you're heading out to the coastal regions, the weather's fine and dry. It's predicted to be very, very busy on the roads. They are actually predicting that tomorrow shouldn't be as busy for people, but Monday they're saying between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. again, you can expect delays. So if there is any way of avoiding the roads, that would be great. But if not, I would say just make sure that you've got plenty of water in your car. Make sure that you do plan ahead if you need to get anywhere at a certain time. Just expect, unfortunately, that it's very likely that you will have those delays. And unfortunately, it's not looking better on the rail either. There's so many things to talk to you about. The cross-country rail network has strikes, and there's no trains today and a limited service on Monday and on Sunday. Network Rail has engineering works going on, so if you're travelling with them, please check for the replacement bus services. East Coast Main Line today is closed between London and Peterborough. West Coast Main Line link between Birmingham New Street and Birmingham International Airport is closed Saturday to Monday, and Avanti services have also warned of diversions, so you can expect longer journeys. Now, the coach operator National Express has laid on 9,000 extra seats in response to the disruptions, and passenger numbers are up by 20%, with lots of people opting to travel by coach. And there's also warned delays at airports as well, which it's supposed to be the busiest day of the year in summer for the major airports. And there's 12,000 flights scheduled to depart over the bank holiday weekend. Popular destinations, people are jetting off to Palma, Alicante, Turkey and Dubai. So I think the best advice is just to check your individual route before you set off and just allow extra time.
Oh, Hayley, I'm flying off on holiday later today, and that has put the fear of God into me. So I'm very...
so sorry.
No, most reassuring. I think what a lot of people will be sitting at home thinking, listening to this right now, they'll be saying, you know, why on earth did they do these strikes or these engineering works on the bank holiday weekend? People have been grafting for a living for months, waiting for this long weekend, and suddenly the workers and the engineers have thought now's their time to strike.
I completely agree. It always seems to come at really pivotal moments, and you think if there was a worse time, when could it be? And to do these strikes right now really does feel painful. As you said, people are working so hard. Most people working 9 to 5s. They only maybe get 20 to 25 days holiday a year. So, of course, we are going to want to make the most of it. If children aren't back at school, lots of families are going to be affected by this, families with children travelling. We know that that's chaotic at the best of times. So, yeah, really disappointed that these strikes are taking place and all of the work that's going on the rail when we need it the most.
Well, travel journalist Hayley Sparks, thank you very much, and hopefully people will be slightly luckier this weekend, including you. I think it is such a good point. Of course, it's difficult to do engineering works while people are working during the working day, but on the other hand, lots of people can work from home, people can plan ahead, but people get such little time off, and it's so important those few days. Hugely frustrating.
No, I can't work from home. Unlike Mark White, I do not have a home studio from which to show my cats.
Indeed, although he has been in the studio today for his presenting debut. It's very good.
He can present from all over the place. Our masterclass.
Well, it's nearly time for us to say goodbye. Of course, Saturday Morning Live will be continuing. I'm moving to Britain's Newsroom. I'm sure we'll have plenty more shows together, Charlie, coming down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miriam, I think you'll be excellent on Britain's Newsroom.
Got big shoes to fill.
We are losing Bev to the United States, but our viewers and listeners are gaining you. And I'm sure with all your insight and your incisive review of the news, and especially politics, the newsroom viewers and listeners will be very, very lucky to have you. I'm going to miss you a lot. So we'll see who takes over. As I said before, if you want to apply to the position on gbnews.com/your say, please let me know. I can't say...
He's not too bad to work with.
I won't personally check through the applications, but it would be really lovely to hear from you. Who do you think should be working with me? Let us know. And
very interesting, actually.
It could be, yeah.
I might stick around
All
for
sorts
that.
of ideas should come through. One person said earlier, actually, that Mark White should be co-hosting me.
Well, I think it'd be very lively.
Yeah,
I think you'd work well together.
Yeah.
And, of course, very exciting about our coverage in the US, because so much going on there. Lots we can learn from the US. Some really interesting stories. It's going to be great to see Bev Turner and Ben Leo out there every day linking what's going on there with here. So that's going to be very, very exciting.
And you working with the Tory boy, Andrew Pearce. That'll be a collision I'm very excited to see. Only thing I really hope for, Miriam, is that by the time you start working with Andrew, you'll be able to change your Instagram handle, which currently says Miriam Cates MP, in reference to a job she previously has. But I think it's now time to say Miriam Cates Magical Princess.
Well, I have applied to Instagram and asked them to change my handle. I've not got anywhere. So if anybody out there has any ideas how to do it, please let me know. But don't go anywhere, because Alex Armstrong is up next with The Weekend. Alex, what's coming up on your show?
Oh, lovely to see you guys. What a brilliant show. I'm sure you're going to be absolutely missed there, Miriam. But lovely to see. I'll hopefully see you on Friday to Britain's Newsroom as well. It'll be very exciting. Well, Autumn of Discontent is underway, isn't it? We're going to be going live to migrant strikes in Liverpool, as well as what does 5 a day mean to Nigel Farage, and who has thrown another royal under the bus on the Epstein case. We'll see you after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.